Near Osaka, Japan, there is a range of mountains referred to collectively as Rokko. The range of mountains, especially the highest peak, Rokkō-san-Saikōhō, could be seen from an Osaka-based glass and optics factory named Chiyoda Kogaku Saiko. Thus, a range of lenses manufactured by Chiyoda were named after these mountains: Rokko, or to us Westerners, Rokkor. Chiyoda, of course, later became the photography equipment giant Minolta. In the 1950s, some of the cameras that were made by Minolta still bore the Chiyoko name. One of such cameras is this camera right here, the Minolta Super A. It is a beautifully crafted interchangeable lens rangefinder. This lens is a beautiful piece of Rokkor glass, 5cm, that's 50mm, and is specially designed for the Super A. It is perfectly coupled with the rangefinder like all the other Rokkor lenses that were made for this camera at the time. Check out the description for a list of Rokkor lenses for the Super A. The front ring is the aperture ring, which is a click-stop ring from f2 to f22 in the usual stops. The other ring is the focusing ring, which has distance scale information. There is a focusing lever to make focusing easier. The button on the lever is how the lens is detached from the camera for interchanging. Looking at the front of the camera, the numbers inscribed just above the lens mount represent the depth of field scale for 50mm focal length lenses. Towards the bottom of the camera is the synchro selector around the synchronizer connection. You can also see three windows. The middle window is the viewfinder. The one on the right next to the viewfinder is the window that lets in light to illuminate the bright frame lines in the viewfinder. The third window is the rangefinder window. Looking at the top of the camera, we have the accessory shoe in the middle for mounting flash guns and other accessories like viewfinders. To the front of that, we have the unusually placed shutter speed dial, which lets you select from bulb to 400. Note: Minolta advises that when changing from 200 speed to 400 speed, to do so before locking the shutter, that is, before advancing the crank. To the left is what Minolta calls the rapid rewind crank. Now, how much more rapid that is than other rewind cranks, I'm not sure. More interestingly, on the right, we have the shutter release button. It is threaded for shutter release cables or soft release buttons. The adjacent frame counter automatically resets itself when the back door is opened and closed. Also on the right is the film advance / shutter lock lever. There is also a film speed indicator on the crank, but this is just for information only as there is no internal light meter in the camera. Looking under the camera, we have the tripod mount and the rewind release button. Film is loaded into the camera from the back. The back is opened by pulling the tab on the bottom edge of the camera. To insert the film, the rewind knob is pulled up as far as possible to insert the canister in place. The film end tip is then inserted into the groove of the film winding spool as usual, making sure that the film sprockets are aligned properly with the winding gears. Then ensure the back is closed properly. Wind the film advance crank until the frame counter indicates the first frame. You need to release the shutter button with each wind. Composing is through the viewfinder. There are bright frame lines visible for composing with 50mm focal length lenses. For 35mm lenses, just use the entire viewfinder. Basically, 35mm and 50mm lenses are catered for. To use anything longer than that, you either have to compensate somehow mentally or use an external viewfinder, which Minolta provides. In the middle of the viewfinder is the rangefinder patch for focusing. When the film is done, or you want to rewind for any reason, simply press the rewind release button on the bottom of the camera and rewind as normal. The Minolta Super A is able to synchronize with flash at all of its own speeds, as long as the correct settings are selected on the flash itself. Right, a few words about how I feel about this camera and my experience with it. I love fully manual cameras, so I really enjoy that aspect of this camera. I always appreciate that I'm not just shooting with a very beautiful camera like this one, but also that I'm holding a piece of history in my hands. It is one camera that really does slow you down though. Even though the rangefinder focusing is quite fast, it's not ideal for fast-moving subjects such as children or sports. I found myself using this camera mainly for still life and static urban settings. It's also a little bit heavy, thanks to the quality metal construction. It feels like an old school Leica camera. I was also really impressed with the character of the Rokko lenses. Not too sharp, not too soft, just right. The location of the speed selector is a new one for me, so I wasn't as quick on the draw as I would be, say, with an Olympus camera, but after a while I did get used to it. The 400th of a second maximum speed is also a little bit limiting. But anyway, since it really isn't a sports photographer's camera, that's perfectly okay. All in all, I love this camera. I love how it looks. I love the photos. It's a throwback to the good old days. So if you have one gathering dust on your shelf, pick it up, dust it off, and go shoot with it. You never know, you may just like what you get. So until next time, bless a mehon!